Welcome to In Studio. I'm Ian Butterfield. In this video we're going to see the second half of an interview I did with Richard Bradbury where he shares with us some of his favourite images. Welcome back to In Studio, Rick.
How are you going?
Thank you. Rick's brought with him this time a series of images for us to look at, and he's going to talk us through some of his photography. So let's start with the first image, Rick.
Okay, first image here that we have on screen. This was taken in not a local park to me, it's actually over Liverpool end. It's actually in Sefton, so Sefton Park with the model for that day, Pamela. It was a joint shoot between myself and my co-host on News Photo, Mark. Be that assist one another sometimes or do joint collaboration work or shoots. And this is a nice, interesting little cave that's part way around that park. I mean, this cave could be a cave that you could find anywhere, I suppose, really. At least with it being in a park, you know it's relatively safe.
Yep.
Although when working in places like this, watch out for your heads. So with this shot, I worked on a couple of poses with Pamela, so you can free pose, have a little bit of fun with it, start dancing maybe, to get them involved. Always working with your subject, and I've actually got a load of lens flare in this. Now this hasn't been added in Photoshop. If you're thinking of taking a picture and adding lens flare in Photoshop, don't. Okay, you can do it in camera. And it's got two speed lights on a light stand behind it, kind of staggered apart on a bracket. Heads are zoomed in to, I believe, about 50mm if I remember correctly, and they were both running around a quarter to half power on the output, and just let those lights fire, wireless triggers, all dialed in manually, so she's essentially backlit. There's no reflector pumping light back in. I've done a little bit of work in post with a little bit of fill light, but it's basically what's bouncing off the walls of the cave.
So was that, I can't tell from the image whether that's looking out of the cave at night or whether it's looking into the cave during the day.
That's actually in the middle of the cave during the day. Where the lights are placed, that's like the back exit of the cave.
Right.
So if you looked at that during the day or exposed to the ambient light outside the cave, you would see the path leading out of it. Exposure settings were to make sure, I mean there's very little ambient light in the cave at the time anyway, really. But I made sure it's all flashlit, there's no ambient light exposure in there at all.
Nice shot.
Thank you.
Have a look at another one.
Okay, this is a good friend of mine, Steve. He's the father of my two godsons actually.
Right.
So I was itching to shoot a portrait that day, and I thought, the weather's been rubbish, it's freezing cold, but the sky looks quite moody, especially when it's underexposed, even though it was overcast. Not necessarily the best sky, but thought, can I borrow you for 15 minutes? So went over to a field nearby his house where he was living at the time. Took a 13-foot light stand, one speed light, set it up on the stand. The speed light head was zoomed to about 35mm, so you can kind of control the pattern of light from the light itself. Angled down, he just went straight into that kind of a strong stance, kind of a hard man kind of pose.
Works nicely with the t-shirt.
It certainly does. So it's a hard light again. Talking about a project that I've got running using hard light, you don't have to run a modifier. It was quite windy, so an umbrella wouldn't have survived very long. And what I like about this shot is, yes, the sky's quite dramatic. I've underexposed that, so the ambient light's backed off, and then I've lit him. Is the framing between the trees that you can see. I've purposely placed in there. Yes, it's centre of the frame, but sometimes the centre can work.
Yeah, I think that's one of the this is one of the occasions where it does, because it's framed with the two trees. The other thing I like about this is the unusual perspective. You've shot from low down with it. I normally tell people about portraits is you try to avoid shooting up somebody's nose, but in this occasion it actually works.
I mean, it works in this occasion because it's where I've got the key light is quite high, so it's actually drops a shadow under the nose. Yes, if you zoom in you can see, but it's kind of hidden in the shadow. Now, what I would generally have people do when I'm shooting like this, depending on how they stand, if they stand really upright, back straight, then I'll probably have them lean forwards when I'm shooting lower. It just kind of helps deal with the perspective a little bit better, rather than looking like they're being stretched when you're shooting wide angle. because I was quite close in shooting wide angle to get the frame that I want, and you can get, it's not the lenses that are at fault here, it's actually the distance you're working at that creates the distortion. It's not something that the lens is to blame for.
Yeah.
Because I was working close, I'd have them lean forward slightly to counteract that.
Yeah. Next image.
Okay. Shot in your studio.
Right, yes. I think that must have been one of the events I wasn't at.
Okay, it was during the period whilst you were away.
Ah, right.
Looking after the studio for you. Now, I mean, those of you who have watched the videos probably know that I do know Ian. Yes. I've shot in this studio a few times, and I'm with living close by, I keep an eye on the place as well. This was shot with 2 speed lights against a white wall. The famous white wall you'll see in many of the videos.
Yes, and behind us at the moment.
Yeah. So it's a really simple backlit portrait. There is some light being reflected back in that's coming bounced off the ceilings or the side walls of the studio as well, but I've not purposely brought in a reflector to bring light in. You could do if you wanted to, and if you wanted to create kind of a dreamy look, maybe you can bring in a couple of whiteboards to bounce light back in, but it's all backlit, slightly overexposed the backlighting, so I've got the wall to blow to white and then gone a bit further, so it starts to wrap back around, working quite close to it. And she was great to work with, Erica, and very, very energetic, always jumping around. She wanted a lot of serious stuff doing herself, but she just couldn't stay still, so I thought, okay, right, fine, we'll do a set and you can just dance away, have fun with it, and she was moving around. You can see the hairs twirling around, and the flash is actually frozen that action, rather than shutter speed.
So you're using 2 speed lights. Why were you using speed lights rather than all the... I've got a lot of expensive studio lights in here. Why were you using speed lights?
Okay, there's a thing called flash duration. Okay, and it's the period of time when that flash is actually lighting someone or exposing someone. And typically studio strobes, unless you spend a lot of money, are really, really, really slow. To the eye, they look really quick. But generally they're a lot slower than a speed light, so they kind of light, and then go out, where a speed light goes light out. So it's that quick freeze of the action with speed lights. Yes, there's not much power, so I mean that was shot at I think ISO 2 or 400. So I've had to increase the ISO to keep the flash power down, so I can shoot faster and not miss frames.
Nice shot. Let's move on.
Sarah. Okay, again, this was using your studio, and that's a personal work shoot, and black paper background on this one. I really love this shot, and I like this one more than the shot, which actually isn't in this selection, but was the actual pose shot, which I'd set this setup for. It's lit with a beauty dish, which is from camera left, quite close into camera left, but overhead, so almost like you would boom it directly overhead. And there's a hair light as well. Now the hair light in this image is quite prominent because I would have had it turned slightly towards camera during the normal pose, and the hair light's more subtle. But I've kept this one because it's a reaction. Okay, it's the moment that she's laughed. I can't remember what I said or what my assistant said at the time. Mark was helping me out on this one. Honestly can't remember. But it was that reaction. So I'd shot my portrait and I stay there focused, ready just in case. So I never shoot and then walk away or drop the camera, always looking for those moments after, because it's those moments that will be the stronger image a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time.
Very true. Looks like you've insulted her or something. got to laugh. And that's what, sometimes that repartee and that banter in the studio is what gives you those lovely shots, the unexpected shots. And it's true, a lot of the images I have that I really like are not the ones where the shutter was opened at the point where the model was expecting it. It might have been a second or so before or a second or so after, and you just get that natural look, that natural reaction.
Definitely. And it's for that reason why I only ever shoot with manual flash. Manual exposure, manual flash. TTL, automatic flash, is great if you're in a dynamic situation and stuff like that. But at least you know you're dialed in. Provided she doesn't run away and move, then I can stay and shoot as fast as my lights will let. And stay ready, and I love that far more than the image that I've got as well. I mean, that kind of beauty dish light is great for doing beauty shots. I like it because of the fall off on the frame. It's not whilst 28-inch beauty dish is quite big, it's not a huge light source, but working close in, it gives a really nice light.
It does. Okay. Next image.
Okay, Alana. This is from a very recent shoot. Again, it was actually in this studio.
Yes, I recognise the background.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's just a bit of material that I found in your basket.
Yes. Yeah.
And it goes to show you don't need a lot really to make a different background. You know, you could use a white wall like you see in the one of Erica. You can use curtains, rugs, anything you've got, paper backgrounds.
I mean, these are just the material that's being used here is actually just some thin drapes that I got from a well-known Swedish furniture supplier.
No names mentioned.
No names mentioned.
No. And it works really well. I like the tone of it as well. And I've worked this again. I do a lot of stuff with only using one light. So unless I'm lighting the background, then a lot of it's with one light. And this was with a 28-inch Westcott power softbox. Love that thing. Love the quality of light out of it with a speed light again. So it's nothing big and fancy or powerful. And I've shot this boomed overhead, so it's butterfly lighting. So it's directly overhead, angled down.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a soft shadow under the nose, a really soft shadow under the chin. I'm always looking for some kind of a shadow. I don't want to fill that with light, because the shadows create definition for me.
Yes.
And there's been a fair bit of post-processing work on this one. Get it right in camera, get your exposure. And then if you do want to take it further, if you're doing, say, a high-fashion shot or something where the model's expecting more work afterwards, then do that. But make sure you do as much as you can.
How much have you actually softened the skin tone on this?
I mean, Alana had great skin. She's a beautiful looking woman, great to work with. I had a ton of fun working with her. But I did do a little bit of skin softening and a little bit of skin healing on it.
Yeah.
I would have been happy not doing, I must admit. But I thought I've been trying to make myself at least experiment with doing a little bit more work on post-production. Yeah. Should that be a requirement at a later stage, be it from a client or for an image that I have a vision for later on. So I thought, okay, I'll use this set and experiment with that. I don't want to, people can go too far on post-processing and soften things out, and when people start to brighten eyes, it looks like a certain character out of a certain sci-fi series, little snake thing,
Yes.
It just goes too far. So I'm going to use good lenses, make sure that focus is good to the sharp, rather than messing with eyes. Get light in the eyes, and I may do a little bit of skin softening, although a lot of the time I won't do.
Talking about the eyes on this, I noticed she's got her eyes closed for it. Was that a deliberate thing?
Yeah, so a lot of things I'll do when I'm shooting headshots is I'll have them look down and then look towards the camera. So you get that instant strong eye contact. So you have them look down and look up, look down and then look up to the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of professional models do that quite naturally.
Yes.
Rather than it looking straight at the camera, which kind of gets a little bit weird after a while.
Rub it between the headlights, isn't it?
That's it. And I'll also shoot somewhere they're looking off frame or they're looking down with their eyes, because it's a different feel to the image.
Yes.
And whilst you're there, you might as well shoot that. You might as well shoot a portrait orientation shot and then do landscape orientation. You're dialed in, you're fixed, your exposure's good, you might as well shoot, give yourself a couple of options, and give your client or model a couple of options as well.
Yes, indeed. Let's move on.
I love this one. This is probably the favourite image that I've ever shot so far. I mean, I love that one of Alana, I must admit, but Freddie, 3 months old he was there, is the child of one of the clients. I couldn't have asked for better clients at all. They're absolutely awesome. I worked with them over a 12-month period, photographing Freddie, and I mean, it's amazing how much he changed from the first images of him and now where they fill out as they start to grow. Puppy fat as they call it. And he's just such a character. He's the only babies I know who will work with you in front of a camera for a good hour and a half to 2 hours, and he's fine. Yeah. And then eventually, enough's enough. But he's an absolute star. Black and white image, black and white converted in post-production. Because I shoot my images raw, you're capturing the raw colour data, so you have to do the conversion later on. You can tell your camera to show black and white, which is a little preview, gives you an idea. But generally I'll do black and white conversion later on. A black bed sheet for this one. Right. Nice and simple. I didn't have my background set at the time, so a black bed sheet draped over a couple of dining room chairs. Yeah. And a couple of A-clamps holding that on. Yeah. Quite far away from it, so the depth of field doesn't really cover it enough to make it too sharp, so you can see any creases if there were any. And also the light is actually falling off to the point where it goes dark enough.
I was going to ask you about creases on the one of the problems I've seen when people have used bed sheets is there's always this checkerboard pattern of creases on there.
Yeah.
Any tips for how to avoid that?
Certainly. You can work further away from it and shoot with a wider open aperture for shallow depth of field.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a couple of things that come into play with depth of field: is your aperture, focal length, and your working distance from your subject, or camera to subject distance. So you can use those in your favour to drop that background out of focus, but you can also not have it lit as well.
Yes.
So make sure it doesn't get lit, the light falls off so it goes darker. And there's certain things you can do by pulling it taut on both sides and clamping it, but these sheets that you can buy that say that are creaseless, don't fall for it.
No.
It's rubbish.
Yeah. The trick I know, and you will know this from using the studio, is all my sheet backgrounds are very, very carefully scrunched up into a big heap so that it's a completely random pattern of creases on there, rather than the sort of checkerboard type.
Yeah, the traditional folded bed sheets. Yeah, okay, that's another way of doing it as well, certainly. But, I mean, this, by the way, as well, for the folks at home, was shot with my very first SLR. I had the 500D and the kit lens. Okay.
Just goes to show it's the famous saying, it's the photographer that takes the image, not the camera, and this just proves it. And I really love the catch lights in his eyes there.
So with a 33-inch umbrella as well, the speed light, so nothing
very,
really fancy.
Very simple setup, well within the reach of most photographers' budgets. If you're into photography, then if you've got the camera, then the outlay for what you need to create an image like this is, compared to the cost of the camera, is minimal.
No, you can do it for under £100.
Easily.
Certainly.
Yeah. Alright, let's look at the next image. Now this I recognise.
That is. I mean, this again was shot in this studio, black paper background, and we were running through doing some testing with doing hard lights, side lights, and grids and so forth. And I really liked this shot. I took a couple of frames to get the framing that I wanted, so it was a split frame. So personally, maybe to a fault sometimes, is I don't like cropping in post-production. I'd rather do it in camera. There are times when you have to, like if you want to do a square crop for an album cover, then you've got no choice. But you can still frame for that though, with the cropping in mind. So it's split crop down the centre, and it's lit by a single studio head. With, I think this one was a bare reflector rather than gridded. Quite close in.
I'm looking at the catch light on there.
And it seems a solid reflector.
It does.
Which is typically, the reflector is 55-degree standard reflector, quite close in. And I mean, you do get hot spots, so you can see on the cheekbone, on the side of the nose. If you've got any skin which is shiny, be it oily skin, that's going to be picked up. It's the nature of just working with the bare hard light, although you're using soft light, you're still going to get that as well. And because of the frame, it's been split. You don't really see the shadow side of the other side of his face. There's shadow obviously going up to his eyebrow and his forehead, but it's to be expected. And because it's really close in, there's very, very little getting onto the background, so it stays black.
Nice shot. I mean, this was one of the shoots that I was at, and I actually have a very similar image to this, but that is really nice. Nice frame, really tight in. I like that.
It's 50mm prime lens to 1.8. Which is nice and cheap to start with for a prime lens at f2.8, I think it was, remember rightly?
Yes, sounds about right. Given that sort of tight depth of field. And the interesting thing about something like this is when you are working with a shallow depth of field with portraits, it's always the eye that you focus on. It's probably very obvious to say that, but if the ear was in focus and the eye not in focus, that would be, it would look odd. If the tip of the nose was in focus and the eye not, again it looks odd. Our brains are conditioned to look into people's eyes, and that's what we expect to see in focus.
The eye is going to go to the brightest part of the image and the sharpest also as well.
So, let's have a look at the next.
Hazel.
Yes.
Now, this looks a little contrasty on this screen. I love this shot. This was shot at a local park. On top of a hill, so you can at least get the sky in the background. Nice sunset, nice red to orange sky in the background, which kind of complements the colour of her hair. At the time, lit with a softbox camera right, 28-inch Apollo softbox, and up slightly higher and then angled down. So we're still dropping shadow under the chin, so you still get definition in terms of shape of the face as well. And so I really do like that shot. And it's one of those rare moments when you're dealing with manual flash and you're not metering stuff, which is, I don't run with a meter, is it where you set your power, like quarter power plus a third. I can remember this one, f7.1, it's 160th of a second. And boom, that was it, done. Bang on.
Yeah. It's nice when it all comes together, isn't it?
Yeah. Usually, without running with a meter, you take a test shot and you adjust maybe one more and then make your final adjustment and you shoot. It's a different way of working.
So one of the interesting things about this image, something I often tell people is very few people look good looking absolutely straight on to the camera. This is one case where that works.
Yeah. Dead on eye contact. I did have Hazel look down and then look towards the camera. She didn't look down with her chin, but just with her eyes. I usually ask people to look down with their eyes first. Dangerous if you have them look down with the chin. If they don't bring the chin back up high enough, it starts to thicken the neck.
Yes.
Okay, and this works with anybody. If they're pulling back too much, they get a thick neck as well. So have a look down with their eyes and straight eye contact, and then bam, click the shutter. But I really do like that shot. Nice tight frame and a headshot. I mean, shot with an 85mm lens, so it's a great headshot lens. Be that either full frame or crop.
I was going to say that's 85mm on crop sensor,
which is 136mm field of view.
So you can do the maths a lot quicker than I can. Let's have a look at the next image. Oh, Hazel again.
Hazel again. I've worked with Hazel obviously a few times. Now, people always say don't include images of the same person too often. To a point, try and avoid that, but sometimes you've got something that's really strong that you want to include that, okay, you can include it. And this is actually part of a series of 3 images shot where she's done a different pose. Now you'll notice the sky is really deep blue. Probably bluer than what you would normally expect it to be.
Indeed.
It was dusk, very, very tail end of any kind of light. So the sky does go blue, not that deep blue. And it's not that I've done this in post-production, whilst I have made some adjustments to contrast. Generally saturation I kind of leave as it is, just contrast and black levels maybe. But this has been done in camera. I've kicked the white balance to tungsten, which makes that go really cold light.
Yes.
Okay. And the flash, if I'd have left the flash ungelled, it would have been really cold light on her because the flash is daylight balanced. So I put a colour correction gel on there, which was a 1/4 or a half, 1/4 CTO gel I think it was at the time, looking at Hazel's skin tone.
CTO?
Colour temperature orange. Okay. And so that was on the front of the flash, and then someone held the flash off to one side just above. The flash did have a grid on it as well. It's a 1/4 grid.
You can see the fact that the light is constricted in the middle of there.
And that grid just creates a nice tight circular pattern of light on your subject and the area. So you can basically light something very specifically without lighting another area with grids if you want to. And these little grids are great. I've got 2 different versions of them. And they work really well.
Let's have a look at the other ones in the sequence on this. So
next. Same settings on the camera, same exposure. There was a slight shift because I had someone holding the lights. There's that slight variable of the light moving potentially. I would prefer to lock it out. I didn't have a boom with me, I was travelling light. So you run the
voice activated light stand.
Voice activated light stand. So I've put her in the corner of this hedge incidentally to shoot these because I like the framing of them and I like the V shape at the top. It adds interest, kind of points down towards them, so I had that in the top third and the subject Hazel in the centre of the frame.
The look is sort of almost a sort of scared look. The sort of reminiscent of sort of some of the horror movies, vulnerable female.
That was the play that I had. So I gave some direction to Hazel, the kind of feeling that I wanted her to portray. And we worked on a couple of frames like that. I've got some others that I do like, but these 3 I felt were the strongest ones.
Let's have a look at the third one.
So the third one.
Is
here. So this is kind of quite pensive. She's not as looking as worried per se as maybe the other ones, or as scared or vulnerable. But she's backed into a corner and feels still, so it still goes along with that theme.
The V shape of the hedge isn't quite as pronounced on this one.
No, I've actually changed the framing slightly on this one because her arms are out. So it's not quite as pronounced as that one. And there probably has been some slight shift in where I've shot from.
Yeah.
Because I'm shooting handheld. I mean, I've shot this at a 50th or a 40th of a second as well.
Yeah.
So I was trying to be really steady on the camera.
Yeah.
But when you're shooting handheld, you will.
Yeah.
move
It
slightly.
looks as though you've shot it from a little bit higher up, this one,
Yeah.
which would flatten the hedge out.
So a little bit higher. There's one thing I do like about this particular image in the series. Now, I'm going to make these three into a tip trish where you put them three together to show them as one image.
Yeah.
I just need to find out which order I want to put them in. I keep on changing my mind. But here, underneath the... I'm pointing to the laptop screen, not that you guys can see this, but underneath where her chin is, I've got a nice symmetrical shadow.
Yes.
I would have, and under the nose, I'm looking for that shadow to come into the, I don't know, the cleft, is it there? Or the, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't.
That little bit on
Yeah.
top of your top lip, you guys might know.
Yes.
Let us know in the comments. I wanted that just to fall directly into there.
Yeah.
Very, very critical. Little details like that, I want people to notice
Yes.
that. You might not notice it straight away, but maybe even later on. Now, I could have got it even more bob on if I had a light stand and a second light stand and boomed it and fixed it.
Yeah.
Remember, I've got someone holding light here, but I do like this series of images. So.
Yeah. Very nice. And should be one more to look at.
This is Pamela, a different Pamela to the first image. Okay, this is shot not too far away in a local park. It just goes to show you don't need to travel really far. You can find a good location anywhere.
Yes.
A little plot of land to work on,
Yeah.
something for a background. And I was working with her and a makeup artist on the day. Now, full credit to the makeup artist, she noticed the tree.
Yeah.
And it's quite an interesting shaped tree. It comes down in a nice circular pattern. And I used that as kind of a frame to frame her. I underexposed the ambient a little bit, certainly on the tree because that's in the shade. I mean, this is in full sun,
Yes.
so it's a really bright day. And Pamela's been lit with a 28-inch beauty dish off to camera left that's about 10 foot away.
Yep.
And I've used not a speed light on this one, a 600 watt second battery powered pack. So we're talking about 8 speed lights to do this.
Yes.
You can't put 8 speed lights in a beauty dish.
No.
So, and 8 speed lights would cost you something like £1,500.
Yeah.
So it gets really expensive as you're trying to gain those extra stops. The sun, which was coming from to the right of the tree, just over the top of the building, which you can't see in frame, has created a little bit of flare, even though I've got a lens hood on. I'm fine with that. Didn't lose contrast really, and it's got a nice room light, which you can see on the light there, and on the hair as
Yes. Yeah, it's very nice, the white on the hair.
So I just work with Pamela, say just try some different poses, have a little bit of fun, and to see what we get.
Lovely. And I think that's the last image. Yep.
That
is the last one indeed. Okay, thank you very much, Rick, for coming back to the studio, and thanks for sharing your photos with us.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you and goodbye. This has been an in-studio video presentation by Ian M. Butterfield. All content and photographs are copyright their creators and may not be reproduced without prior permission. For more information including how to subscribe to this and other videos, please visit www.ians-studio.co.uk/videos. Thank you.